In the late 90s, the world was once again gripped by Star Wars fever. The 20th anniversary release of the digitally remastered trilogy sufficiently started building the hype for the upcoming and much anticipated prequel, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. As with the original trilogy, merchandise was going to be a key element to the Episode 1 experience. Just going to the cinema wasn't enough. You had to buy action figures, starships, your favourite character's lightsaber, the Jar Jar Binks talking watch, the Qui-Gon Jinn lollipop holder. The list is endless. All audiences must be reached, whether they like it or not. And one of those audiences was gamers. Star Wars is no stranger to the world of video games. As far back as the Atari 2600, you could swing lightsabers, jump into an X-Wing and take on the Empire all by yourself. First-person shooters, third-person shooters, even a tournament fighter. But they were never a full movie experience. Then came Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, on the PlayStation. The game was released in 1999, the same year as the film, on the PlayStation and also on the PC, and it was developed by Big 8 Productions. And they were known for games like Celebrity Deathmatch and Simpsons Wrestling, nothing too important, and I feel it was quite a big task to take on this game. The plot sees you fleeing the planet of Naboo with Queen Amidala, and you go to Tatooine where you meet Anakin Skywalker, the young Darth Vader. He wins a pod race. You go to Coruscant, you go to Naboo, you fight the Trade Federation and Darth Maul. The end. Boom, game over. But obviously that's not the whole game. The game follows much of the film's storyline, but it elaborates on things, certain aspects. So for example, there's a scene in the film when Qui-Gon Jinn has dinner with the Skywalkers, and then he goes to the pod race. But the game asks the question, where did Qui-Gon go? And what did he do between dinner and the pod race? And that's kind of how most of the levels work. They're kind of the scenes in between the scenes of the film. The game starts you off on the Trade Federation ship where negotiations have fallen through. You have to fight your way off the ship down to the surface of the planet Naboo. You play through this level as Obi-Wan Kenobi, but throughout the game you'll switch characters from Obi-Wan to Qui-Gon to Queen Amidala / Padme, spoiler alert, and also Captain Panaka, who I still call Panonka, so forgive me if I say that throughout this. Once you're on Naboo, you bump into good old Jar Jar Binks, who takes you through the swamps and down to the underwater city of Otogunga, which is basically a labyrinth of tunnels and tubes and lifts, in order to find Jar Jar to free him so he can help you get through the planet core to get to the city of Theed. Once there, you have to escort Queen Amidala to the hangar bay and get her off the planet, which, as with all games, isn't straightforward. You have to fight your way through the city, with her in tow. But the trouble is with Queen Amidala is that she keeps getting caught on corners, and you have to keep going back to her to get her back, and even when she says, I will follow you, she doesn't, and then you get too far ahead, you get too far away from her, and it just comes up on the screen, Padme died. And then you get this dramatic death music. I mean, what's a problem? I hate escort missions in every single game that I have to do it. Either the person's walking slow as a snail in front of you, or behind you getting caught on objects. But after Theed comes Mos Espa, and the game changes a little bit here. So far it's been running and gunning, or should I say dashing and slashing, and also platforming with mild puzzle solving with buttons and whatnot. But in Mos Espa, it takes on more of an RPG element. You have to get involved in conversations, collect and trade items in order to get information, in order to find Anakin Skywalker. But when you do meet him, it's not the end of the level. You then have to find a bunch of pod racer parts for his pod racer. Anyone who's played Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, for PlayStation, knows Mos Espa very well, because you'll just end up running through the streets of Mos Espa, killing everyone in sight. Men, women, children, droids, Toydarians. After this level, you have Mos Espa Arena, which is a bit of a kind of a pointless level because it doesn't contribute much to the storyline. Qui-Gon Jinn turns up for the pod race and he can't get in because he hasn't got a ticket. So you got to talk to a bunch of people, then finally you make your way in. At some point you run into Jabba the Hutt. Word of warning, if you kill Jabba, somehow Padme dies. If you try to get past the guy at the top of the stairs outside the bar without a ticket, Padme dies. What's Padme up to? Just hanging around a bunch of dangerous farm machinery.
Don't worry about me. I'll keep up.
Yeah, sure you will. Little tip though, if you do want to get past the guy to get down to the pod racing area, you have to buy the guy at the bar a drink. Why does Qui-Gon need a ticket anyway? He's with Anakin. He helped find all the parts to get him into the race anyway. Then at the end of this level you have a brief and very awkward saber duel with Darth Maul, which frankly looks like a couple of 5-year-olds with sticks trying to hit each other, trying to poke each other in the eye. Then comes my least favourite level, which is on Coruscant, where you play as Captain Panaka. And once again you're escorting Queen Amidala to the Senate. And guess what? You need to buy tickets to take a tour to get to the Senate, which frankly Captain Panaka really has a hard time with because he's such an aggressive, negative man.
I can only offer these electro-binoculars. They are worth far more than the tickets, I can assure you. No, I am the legal owner of these electro-binoculars, I assure you.
I mean, he was pretty miserable in the film anyway. Everything he says, they were probably wiped out. How he ever made captain, I'll never know. Mind you, they promoted Jar Jar Binks to Bombad General, so they're probably handing out promotions left, right and centre. The Coruscant level mixes the RPG element of conversations and trading things with some light puzzle solving and platforming and third-person shooting. So I suppose the level does encompass all the elements of the game. Halfway through the level, the Queen gets kidnapped, which frankly is a relief, as you don't have to worry about her dying every 5 seconds. Eventually you rescue her, then you go to meet Palpatine. Don't tell anyone, he's actually the Emperor. And then it's back to Theed to liberate the Naboo, which frankly feels like the Theed level, but in reverse. And then it takes you on to the final showdown, which is a mix between different characters. So as the level kind of splits in two, you play as Obi-Wan Kenobi in certain sections, fighting Darth Maul with Qui-Gon Jinn, and also you play as Padme, fighting her way to the palace with Captain Cupcake. This gives you a chance to use all the weaponry included in the game, which are lightsabers, blasters, bombs, Captain Pikachu's rapid blaster, and Padme's weird stun gun, which is as useless as those hand dryers in a motorway service station. And it all culminates with the final battle with Darth Maul in the power plant, where Qui-Gon bites the dust.
Die, Jedi, die. No!
Which incidentally was a bit of a disappointment. For those of you who bought the Star Wars Episode 1 soundtrack before seeing the film, you'd be quite disappointed to see that track 15, Qui-Gon's Noble End, and track 16, Qui-Gon's Funeral, kind of spoils it for you. The game is very faithful to the storyline of the film though. The visuals, I think, for the time, are very good. They're very much like the visuals in Star Wars Episode 1, the colours and the tones, and the architecture. It actually makes you feel like you're playing the film. And obviously with all Star Wars films, it includes the fantastic score by John Williams, and certain actions within the game, for example fighting sections, cue different pieces of music to sort of heighten the action and the tension and the pace of the game. It also uses all the sound effects from the film, which I really enjoyed all the sound effects in Star Wars Episode 1. I think they went really far out of their way to create new and interesting sound effects for the different types of blasters and the starships, and I just think they're great. I also think it was quite an ambitious game as well. It wasn't just a space shooter or a first-person shooter, it was an actual movie game. The one saving grace is you never ever play as Jar Jar Binks. The controls are okay, but the camera angles are sometimes quite bad. It's kind of like an isometric view, which sometimes means that if there's an enemy shooting at you, it's off screen, you can't see it, you can't adjust the angle of the camera. And also, because of the platforming elements, it can make some jumps quite difficult. The saber duels are just clunky. When someone's shooting at you, you can deflect their blaster shots with the lightsaber, which I think is pretty cool. But when it comes to the saber duel with Darth Maul, it just looks terrible. And the thing that lets the game down the most has to be the bad voice acting.
I need to reach the palace. Can you tell me the fastest route?
It would have been better to have the original Qui-Gon Jinn, Liam Neeson, and Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi, but they've been replaced with voice actors. There are some original voices in there, like Jar Jar Binks, and also Anakin Skywalker, who is voiced by Jake Lloyd. I know the game is bad, but it's kind of one of those guilty pleasures of mine. I probably enjoy it so much because of the nostalgia that comes with it. That hype of being a kid and being able to experience a new Star Wars film. So many people would say to me at the time, I was there when it first came out in 1977. I've lived it when it first happened. But for us as kids, to get it again, for us, it was the first time. And that was such a great feeling. I used to play the game around my mate's house. I couldn't afford to buy the game at the time, so I had to rent it from Blockbuster. And I distinctly remember the first time renting it, I kept phoning them and phoning them and phoning them. They must have been getting so annoyed with me, constantly phoning them to see if it was back in stock because it had already been rented out by everybody. The guy said to me, there is one copy coming back in, it should be in today. And at 9:30 at night, half an hour before the store closed, I phoned them for must have been the 10th time of the day, and the guy said, yes, it's just come back. I was like, Dad, start the car, we're going to Blockbuster. And don't tell anyone, I even skipped school to play it during the day. Shh, our secret. Anyway, that's all I got to say about that. I hope you enjoyed it, reliving some memories. Take care of yourselves. Until next time.
You need a navigator. Obi-Wan, you must find and rescue Jar Jar Binks.
Why do we need that worthless creature?